All right, we're rolling. This is free. I want to talk about today when it comes to the workplace, from civilization to savagery. Because sometimes when I look at the situation that young people, all people, are dealing with these days with the way the workforce is, can you really down on somebody that they're lazy if you've made it a real pain in the ass for them to go out and get a decent job? Where am I going with this? Yeah, freedom, feel, like, subscribe. Let's get into it. And always turn up the video speed. And why should you turn up the video speed? Because you watch the video faster. So when I bother, upload it. Moreover than that, always remember, this is a channel for adults. I talk about real things. I cuss, I swear. I talk like a real human. So if you're a kid watching this, you have shitty parents. Yes. So let's get into the topic. I was thinking about this from the irony of it being like the kind of managerial class you deal with these days. And, it's like the attitude is like, in order to get the job, you got to have experience and you got to have recent experience. And it's like, I found this out in mine where I've been out of the game for come spring 4 years. So apparently I must have forgot everything I ever do when I used to drive one of those big rigs that you might be able to see as ants across the way there. Yes, I used to drive those. And I think about this for a lot of people. And I think about my youth growing up in the Northwest, where the logging crash did so much damage to our life. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean, a log truck crashing? No, I mean, like, the whole industry was wrecked by the government in the late 80s, early 90s. And effectively, the stroke of a government pen shut down Lord knows how much timber, and that affected everybody's jobs and everything, and it just changed everything. If anything, it gave rich boomers from other states the ability to come in and buy up really good land really cheap. Also caused a lot of drug problems and other things, just like that line from that movie Tommy Boy, where they were talking about if the factory shuts down, the drugs come in and the what's it called? The whores twitching their little behinds. It's funny when that part, and the old guy was like, I slept with one prostitute during the war, and my life's been a living hell ever since. It's a good movie, by the way, but it does point out a truth of things. When you lose a large amount of your businesses, then the ones that remain, well, the fact is, for the people that don't move on after the factories shut down, it kind of sets up the people that are still there to be in a worse situation because, you got too many people, not enough jobs, and then the employers just get kind of like, well, why should we hire you? Even if you have experience. And that's one thing I think is kind of nutty. I remember hearing somebody talk about this recently, how when it comes to the job market, they say, well, you need recent experience. We need at least 2 years of experience. And you're like, yeah, that's why I went to school. I went to college. I'm certified in this. And they're like, yeah, but you need experience. So it turned out to some degree, some of these jobs, it would have been better off just getting on-the-job experience than the fucking degree. But and they're like, we won't hire you unless you got experience. And you can't get experience unless someone hires you. And so you're expecting to pay somebody what is a minimum slave wage for experience. And in my case, a guy with 9 years of experience, I've just taken off some time. It was kind of a surprise when it's like, oh, wait, I have to have recent experience. I think a lot of that, I've said it before, I think it has to do with the fact that this industry is basically ruled by the insurance companies. That's really it. I think a lot of it has to do with that. They don't care who does it. But if they have a number on there that says you have 2 years of verifiable experience, and I'm like, well, I have 9 years of experience, but it's not recent. And that's where I come back to the concept of a certain amount of freedom. And when I said earlier, from society to savagery, some of the rudeness you get and some of the sacrifice you make. I remember one of my buddies, everybody was like, well, he needs to get a job. He needs to do this. And he'd be like working for a company. And I remember like he was working for this, ship company, building yachts and stuff. And they said, oh, yeah, we can have you hired on for these hours. And he's like, okay, I can work this because my girlfriend works at the local casino. And sure, I could do this. He's like, he's begrudgingly doing it. His girlfriend was making God tier level tips. And I remember when she quit that job, well, this guy grabbed my ass and said something. I'm like, so what? She's like, what do you mean, so what? I'm like, you just made $300 in 4 hours for being the cute chick at the blackjack table. Shut up. You got your paychecks plus an extra $300. What are you bitching about? I'm like, my God. I'm like, from the guy's perception that, I mean, she made in a couple days more than I'd make in a week of doing my job. Yeah, I wasn't making much back then. And it was just like, what the fuck is your problem? But yeah, he wanted to work at the same time that she was. That way they could both get home and have some time together. And after a while, they kind of swapped the thing. And he's like, this isn't what I signed up for. And his buddy, and by the way, a guy I knew kind of as well. And part of the reason I don't really care for a lot of people where I grew up from, he stuck his neck out to get this guy this job. And then eventually my buddy was like, look, man, you guys are putting me on this other shift. I'm never able to see my girlfriend, and we don't really need money. And I like fucking her more than I care about coming to work for you. So guess which one's going to, by the way, his bosses were like ridiculously surprised. Like, what do you mean you're quitting? Yeah, I'm quitting. I'd rather bang my girlfriend than work here for you. I said, if we work on these shifts, I'm willing to do this, but otherwise, no. And it's like, they weren't used to seeing anybody with that level of, like, I don't know, self-respect, pride. That pride's the wrong word. Self-respect is the correct word. Here's the deal you made. You're not doing it. And he's not having it. I remember that same guy that stuck his neck out to get my buddy hired. That guy, I was talking to him. He's like, well, they were like, well, don't tell him you know me. I'm like, well, why the fuck? What's the problem? And that type of shit right there. That's also why there's a lot of people I look back at where I grew up, and I'm just like, yeah, fuck them. Fuck them. I mean, like, if they need anything, they can go fuck themselves. And the reason I say that is because, like, what, you know me. I'm a decent dude. I know how to work. And it's just this attitude that people had. Like, and I lived in a yurt in the woods, so they're like, oh, that's weird. Oh. Like, what's weird about it? Well, I'll tell you what's weird. You go out and you make this much money and you piss it away all on rent and utilities, and you're broke. Shit, if I made the money that some of my friends were making back then, and that's the thing about it. That's part of the reason I've said often, most of your friends are fucking bullshit. Most of your family is bullshit. When it really comes down to it, how many of them are really there? Most of them will never be there. They're there for the good times. Hey, how you doing? But then when it comes to stick their neck out or doing a little something to really help you out, they're all like, oh, sorry, man. And that's most people. So in a world where basically even those that are supposed to be on your side really aren't on your side, and then you got way too many good people, not enough good jobs, because the logging crash that happened that really affected that. Basically where how many mills shut down, how many of this shut down. Unemployment was horrible when I was a kid. We weren't unemployed. My mom worked a government job, but you saw the people around you, the effects of it. Went from being proud working class people to unemployment to welfare class. And some moved away, some stuck around. But when you grow up and then you become a young teenager trying to find a job, and the attitude is this like, well, how are you going to bend over and let me stuff something in your ass? And I know that sounds a little vulgar, but it's like that. If I bestow this job upon you, how much flesh will you give me? There's some stupid shit. It's just like, it's a fucking job. And then we come back to like the whole concept of my freedom of time and what I can do with it. Like, what if I want to smoke a bowl? Well, the most industries I've ever made real money in, you can't. As a truck driver, you can't smoke the wacky tobacco on your own fucking time. But I could drink Jack Daniels every day. I could go home and pollute my body with all sorts of cigarettes and hard liquor. And as long as I can blow clean the next day, I'm good. Even if my body's completely deteriorated. And I think that's purpose. I think that's on purpose. Really, it's a plan. And they're like, what do you mean a plan? They want you to slowly kill yourself with cigarettes and alcohol. Weed isn't exactly great, but let's be honest, of all the three, it's probably the least damaging thing you'll do. They want that level of control. And my buddy, he was like, his attitude was like, you know what, man, if you're not paying me for this time, you don't own this time. And if you're going to say that you own this time, you're going to have to pay me really goddamn well. He expected to be well compensated for his time if he's doing skilled work. And that's the thing about it. I see this with the boomers, the Gen Xers. These kids are lazy. You're not willing to fucking pay. You're not paying them a wage that's worth it. And you got to understand, the way that working should work is you have to break orbit. You got to get above a certain level, or otherwise you're just wasting your time. If all you're doing is paying your rent and your utilities, and you had just the weekend, we had a little fun, weekend warrior. But at the end of the year, you're still pretty much the same place you were the year before. What was the fucking purpose of all that wasted time? Well, I'm a good, hardworking American. Well, that mentality meant something back in the day when being that person brought you a much better life than it brings you today. And so I don't totally fault these kids that just look at the situation. And like at times, like, I have 9 years of experience in trucking. I went back out and applied. I'm going to have to go back this spring to being basically a starter, fresh meat, with 9 years of experience because you don't have any recent experience. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And then I hear about these bums in like other states that are getting like $650 a month and then $250 in food stamps and some other basic benefits. And I'm like, fuck, you know what? I mean, I think about it at times like, why not me? I can live off anywhere from $100 to $300 a month, maybe only 200. Let's just go with 200. That's 450 extra dollars. Welfare gold, baby. And I can smoke and drink whatever the fuck I want when I want. Well, yeah, but the system. Yeah, I mean the same system that pissed away how much. I had a 20-year war to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. I think that was a plan, by the way. The same country that like takes a year or two to build a fucking overpass and is vastly overpriced. The same country that takes 13 years to educate your children to where they're good enough to do what? Flip hamburgers, stock dollar stores? I'm sorry, but this country is kind of fucking trash. And the idea that we don't have some way to test for marijuana, like the same thing we do with blood alcohol. The fact that we don't have a way to test for that to where I could smoke a J on my off time. Like I've got 3 days off. It's Friday night. Barbecue. Smoke a J. Have a good roast session. Maybe have a little wake and bake on the Saturday morning and just casually pull weeds in my garden while listening to tunes. And Sunday, you just don't do anything. The same way you would with alcohol. The fact that I can do that with alcohol and cigarettes, but if I smoke a J, nope, you're barred from having a decent job. Yeah, I start to look at that and think to myself, much like a number of my friends, I'm like, maybe I was wrong about all this hard work shit. I mean, work hard, save your money, live as cheap as possible so you can invest when you're young. That part's absolutely true. But it is a fucking demotivator for a lot of these young people out there when they look around and go, hey, man, this guy basically wants to puppeteer me with their fist up my fucking ass, control my life, and tell me how I can be, how I can do. And they don't even want to pay me decent for it? Nah, fuck you. It's not, these kids aren't lazy. You're just not offering a good enough deal for the level of boomer bullshit that you want to do to them. And I think it's absolutely reasonable that people are checking out. I mean, let's be honest. The majority reason that most guys are going to work is because they were forced to. Like, oops, I'm pregnant because she chooses to lie about being on the pill. You didn't wear a Jamie wrap. And then next thing you know, we're going to have a kid. So he goes out and gets a job. But if left up to like most people's own proclivities, they'd probably be partying like, running in the sunlight, sex, no pregnancy. By the way, get a vasectomy. You can have that for the rest of your life, guys, unless you catch dick disease. But then you just got to find a chick with matching disease. Happened to one of my buddies. I'm like, man, that sucks, dude. You got the warts. But I'm telling you, man. The reason people don't want to work is that if I'm doing better as a guy living in a van in the fucking wasteland, and that the reality is my actual only real problems in my life are things to do with the normal world, like my house up north and all that shit, dealing with people, contractors. People are like, why don't you want to build another project? Fuck, I can tell you exactly why. I don't ever want to deal with that crap again. I had enough of it last time. It's like, man, people are so damn flaky. And by the way, playing the game where you work hard, you save your money, and invest. Okay, that's good. You do that. But once you go out and try to build something with your shit, you realize you either have this group of people that are like, you can't build that here because we don't like that design. You have to build this $500,000 thing. Or you run into the people like, okay, so let's build a $500,000,000 thing. We got the money, we got the investment. And then you can't find plumbers, electricians, contractors. You can't find fucking people to turn a wrench. Because everybody's like, people are lazy. And well, maybe if all these kids, well, maybe if you paid these kids enough. Maybe if you gave them a life worth fighting for. And by the way, work is like fighting. Work is a battle every fucking day. No, it's not going to kill you, generally, hopefully not. But it is a battle. And you got to tell these kids to go off to this, employment war. At the very goddamn least, give them something at the end of it. Give them something. Don't just, and by the way, respect ain't enough. Respect is, and by the way, because respect is disrespect when you don't compensate people. That's something I've come to the conclusion of over the years. Like people, when people say thank you, but they're not thankful, that is absolutely disrespect. Like thank you is such an overrated, overused word. You want to thank people? Pay them. That's real appreciation, because guess what? At the end of the day, when they go out into the rest of the world and they got to buy something, have something, do something, people expect money from them. So if you can't pay these kids a reasonable, decent wage for the work they do, then don't expect them to go out and do work for you. And that's part of the reason we're in. And you could even say a lot of it has to do with the boomers. The boomers, and hell, I'll be honest, I don't want to see the value of my house go down because it's an investment. But like, nobody wants to. No, they want to build. They don't want to let you build these little. Like, have you seen those fold-up houses where they've got like a Connex box? It's like that, except for it's not a Connex box, and then the sides fold out, and you got a wing on each side, and it's basically about 200 to 400 square feet, and it's only like $4,000 to $20,000, depending on the company, the quality, and the brand. Why the fuck can't these young people do that? Why can't we make it easier for them to put up these temporary homes? Like that would be literally a starter home to where they could actually get ahead. Oh, I'll devalue the value of our property. Why is it like when they have something where they want to set up something where they have, bunk beds, or they're doing van life? Why is it you make it so fucking hard for these people to have $1 in their goddamn pocket at the end of the month? Because by the way, this is where I kind of view that our society, and this is not the first time, it's gone on for ages, we're being ruled by a bunch of aging boomers that are on the death. They're at their death. They're coming to their death. Come on, baby, light my fire. Not to rip off Aaron Clary there, but God, that's funny whenever he does that. Yeah, man, you old aging hippies had a fucking world where things were affordable back in the day. Houses were affordable, land was affordable, vehicles were easy to work on. Sure, I mean, they don't get as good a mileage as they have now. Now you have more tonnage, but you got a car with a computer. You can't even turn a wrench on this damn thing. I would take the older version. I would take the older version if you could make me a brand new version of an older vehicle, I would take that and take care of it, because that will last for decades if it's well taken care of, especially if you're not driving all the time. I mean, hell, even in my old 88 Econoline, I bought it with 98,000 miles on it. So I think, for all I know, had 198 on it, but it said 98,000 on the deal. And it's still a good runner. It's still treating me well. And you know why? Because I don't abuse the shit out of it. But the cost of living has gotten to the point because of these zombified, the zombie lords, the boomer zombie lords. And then the Gen X, middle management butt fuckers. Where basically, yeah, I get why these kids are like checking out. They're like, nope, I have a case of the Ahutatas. Like if you're not going to make it worth working, why would you work? And that's not an unreasonable place. That's not an unreasonable place to be. It's like, it's like when you look at history and you see how often they talk about honor and love of country and blah, blah, blah. Like there's some guy telling you about love of country. He's a commander. He's not in the trench with you. They talk about cowardice and all this shit, but at the end of the day, if you're just one of the swaths of people that got mowed down in World War I, World War II, at least when you came back in that era, there was some respect for people. But then you look at all the people after a war that basically die in poverty because they can't work a job, they can't do something, and it's like, all these people, and this is the thing about it. The differences between now and the past when they used to send off the surplus population. It was said by Scrooge. Now you can't just point. You can't just point a gun at us, via the government. And what's funny about this sometimes is like, you think about it. Well, the law says. That's somebody saying something. That's a piece of paper. The only thing that gives the law any power is other people with guns rolling up and pointing them at you. If you don't do this, if you don't die for something, if you don't work or don't do this, we'll do this thing to you. Which kind of leads me to where I look at a lot of society, working, the day-to-day bills, everybody else's problems. People are the problem. And you really don't have a lot of problems in your life until you have other people around. You don't. There's a handful of things you need to get from society. Like you go into town to go shopping, you get what you need, and when you get back out into wherever your little piece of harmony is, piece of paradise is, basically where you can be left the fuck alone. What you're trying to do is preserve that peace until the word force fucks you to deal with it again. And, I think more people have figured that out. As more younger people have figured out living off less, whether it's an RV, living with their parents, a little piece of land, putting up one of those flip up houses or a tiny home, RV, whatever, I don't care. Van lifing, living in the truck as a trucker. They have realized, more and more people have realized that they don't need all your shit. They don't need your shit. They don't need to buy your cars. They don't need to deal with any of your crap. And whether that's living off a government check or just working a job and being a super ridiculous level minimalist, there's more of this generation that is finding inner peace. But if you're going to expect these kids to go off and tread into this economic kind of war, this like battle of bleeding, or basically you give up your life and time, and then they try to siphon as much of your life, your money is your life, away from you. Well, if there isn't enough left over for someone to reasonably enjoy their life, then it's not unreasonable that these people would just walk away and be like, fuck it. And then, well, to be honest, ever since you started giving, homeless people, bums, checks from the government, well, you're going to find out there's a lot of people that they don't really have the hut-to-hus. But they're living far better than they would have if they were working your shit job, flipping burgers, or like they work, like, you ever seen a job where you work on a construction site, but the job doesn't pay fucking squat? Like, you're making better than flipping burgers, but God, you fucking abuse your body. I mean, even when I was a garbage man, when I did that, the minimum wage was like $8, but usually a lot of people were making like 8, 9 to 10, and I was making $13.74. When I left that job, I was making 17 something. It was 4 years later. What I'm getting at with that is that even though I was doing better than other people, the only reason I was really ever doing as good as I was is because I was living in a vehicle. If I had been working and paying rent, I would have been broke all the fucking time. I would have been basically a renter my whole life. I wouldn't have paid off my property. That shouldn't be what it's like. If you're going to tell people to sacrifice their life, their time, their freedom to choose what they put in their bodies, and that is a choice, like the idea of someone telling me you can or cannot, birth control and all that. Well, why is it I can or cannot smoke weed? Well, because society, special rules. No, I get why a lot of people are checked out. I really do. The deal, you just got to make the deal good enough to be worth coming back to. But anyhow, I think I've talked enough on this for now. Freedom fill out.